for so long, and we hear so many of these events that Government of India has been doing. This is also called the Year of Millets by the Government of India. But we very little research is actually done at the levels of these national institutes such as NIRDPR, and also whatever research we have at hand, they are from
Yes,
different.
sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank
Sir, can we continue?
Yeah, please. Sorry.
Yeah. So, in that issue, we have invited three very pertinent research scholars today. First, we have with us Professor Srijit Mishra. He has joined from IGIDR Mumbai. In fact, he let me know that there is a huge issue with connectivity because of the monsoon, etc. But still, he has found time to join us, and he will be sharing experiences with us and some of his studies and evidence that he will share with us. Second, we have Shri S. Kiran, who has joined from Vikasa in Vishkhapattnam. He will be talking about these millet value chains and the FPOs of millet, how they are working. And lastly, we have our young scientist, Dr. Sangappa, who will be joining from IIMR in some time to talk about some of the FPOs and value chain on millet, the work that he has done. So, before I introduce our speakers in detail and we invite them to talk, let me quickly invite our Center Head, Dr. Ramesh Saktivel, to give a small welcome address, and then we can move on to the main agenda of the program. Sir, over to you, please.
Thank you, Ruchira. Good afternoon, friends. It's a pleasure welcoming you all on behalf of the Center for Corporate Social Responsibility in the NIRD. And we are privileged to have three distinguished speakers among ourselves, like Professor Srijit, who has kindly agreed to be the lead speaker today from the IGIDR, and also Dr. Kiran, who is the Executive Director of Vikasa, and Dr. Sangappa, who is an young scientist working on FPO value chain improvement in millets. So I welcome all the three distinguished speakers on behalf of NIRDPR. Our DG, I think he is busy. He may join if he finds time to join us in this important lecture. So for us in the Center for Corporate Social Responsibility, it has been a pleasure connecting people with who are experts and also the CSR and NGO professionals across India by this lecture series, which we started this year. Especially focusing on what CSR and CSOs like NGOs can connect in terms of the in the rural development arena. So one of the themes that we were very keen, because this year being the International Year of Millet, and Indian government's initiative has been very laudable in this front, and a lot of work is going on and is to be done to promote millets, which are an important component if you look at in the agriculture sector, which has been declining, and still India, although is being one of the leaders in millet production in the country, 41% of millet production happens in India across the globe if you look at. But still there are issues, the areas under agriculture under millet declining, and also the pricing, especially farmers are finding it difficult to sustain growing these millets wherever they are doing it. And also MSP related issues are there, and also the lack of awareness among the consumers. That is one of the major issues, that what we feel that initiatives in terms of value chain analysis and increasing these ready to eat, ready to cook foods which are easily available to consumers can be increased. The millet farmers can adopt millets and then increase their productivity, given the background of climate change, and we need to adopt climate resilient agriculture. And also farmers, the food security issue in terms of nutrition. There are various spheres this can address an effective millet production, and then a proper support that happens to farmers who are producing millets. So from that point of view, it is an important lecture. We thought it is important for CSR and NGOs who are working connected with the people, can bring in a lot of awareness, a lot of support, technical support in terms of marketing support, and also processing it, how the farmers can easily venture into this, because it's a important aspect given these constraints that currently farmers are facing. And in terms of the Ministry of Rural Development is concerned, like all the departments or all the ministries of Indian government are working, and the Rural Development Ministry has been mandated to work on two aspects. One is promoting millets through the rural livelihood missions, which are spearheaded in various states by the state governments through the SHG movement. And the second aspect is very important, that how do we create awareness in the rural areas. So given these two aspects, we feel this lecture is one of the initiatives that we have taken up among many other things which are going on the ground. So we feel the CSR professionals and NGOs who are attending today can take the benefit of listening to our professionals, experts who have joined in this lecture, and then understand and how best they can plan and take this important mission that Government of India is looking forward to take up in this year and in this coming years also. So millet will be playing an important role. So it can be included in the development projects that are being planned on the ground. So with this word, I welcome our speakers and stop here. Will listen from them. I think that's more appropriate. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you
Ruchi.
so much, sir. Now, coming back to our speakers, let us hear from them that in a country where wheat has basically decided who will run the government, is millet even an issue, and can it become important and mainstreamed to be to reimage agriculture in that light? So, with that, let me welcome Professor Srijit Mishra. Let me quickly give you an introduction for those of you who do not work in agriculture, who do not work in the areas of the development economics. Professor Srijit Mishra is the Professor and Dean of Academic and Student Affairs at the Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research, or IGIDR, in Mumbai. He was formerly the director at the Navakrishna Chaudhary Center for Development Studies, or NCDS, and he was working in collaboration with the government of Odisha. He researches and teaches on development related issues that intertwine between social philosophy, analytical measurement, and applied development. During his tenure at NCDS, he was instrumental in spearheading the Odisha Millets mission that brought together the government, civil society, and the academia for a pro people action research initiative that works in four verticals: production, processing, marketing, and consumption. His work on Cyclone Fani as part of the multidisciplinary team involving the government of Odisha and many multilateral agencies dealt with macroeconomic and human impact that has important methodological and policy implications. His work on farmer suicides in Maharashtra led to the setting up of Vasantrao Nayak Shetkari Swabhilamban Mission and other policy outcomes, including the deliberations leading to debt waiver. Some of his publications are on agrarian issues. He is, of course, widely published in areas of agriculture. And if you are a student who is starting to read about agriculture, landholding, farmer suicide, it's quite possible that you will be starting with one of his papers or one of his books. So, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Thank you for your time. And the mic is over to you, sir. Please take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruchira. Thank you, NIRD PR and particularly CSR PPP PA Department Center for inviting me. Thank you, Dr. Ramesh, and my co-speakers, Dr. Kiran and Dr. Sangappa. So, some of you, those who are familiar with the work, there may be, and if you have heard me speak elsewhere, there may be some repetition. So, my sincere apologies for that. So, I'll share my screen now. And if there are any technical issues, please let me know. Is my screen visible?
It's loading. Yes, sir, it's visible.
So, so I generally, in some places, particularly given the topic that we are talking today, reimagining rural. Yeah, so this is a picture that I begin with, and of course, if it is a physical interaction, there's a lot of interaction that happens here. Like, what is it that you have in mind? What I would say is that you note it down, what things that come to your mind. So some of the popular things that might come to mind as is like the rural is pulling the urban, rural is subsidizing the urban, and how things are difficult in a rural scenario, and this has been a persisting problem, and we try to explain this to these two dimensions of crisis in Indian agriculture. So one we refer to as the agrarian crisis, the other is agricultural. So when we talk about agrarian crisis, we are basically referring to how the situation that has that has come out in the last couple of decades has led to threatening livelihoods of small and marginal farmers or agricultural laborers, Adivasis, Dalits, and that is Dalits and women. That is people those who have been dependent on agriculture for their livelihood, either directly or indirectly. It's not about these individuals but also their household members. So on the one hand we talk about people who have been displaced and how displaced in terms of their livelihood being affected. uh, the other is agricultural, where we refer to this crisis in agricultural crisis being the neglect of agriculture in designing of programs and allocation of resources. So I think both Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Ruchira did mention about how, on the one hand, wheat had got substantive focus for large periods of time. It could be wheat and rice in the context of India, and also how other crops like millets or rain-fed areas have been neglected, including the substantive interventions that happened in the 60s and 70s, uh, whether it is agricultural, whether it's crops, whether it is institutional designs, the agricultural universities or the uh, more substantive ICR institutes and other supportive institutes which help particular kind of designs and crops. We will. So one could say that this, while there was a space for such kind of intervention at a particular point of time, but over the years that intervention has not only been limited to specific crops, but they have also withdrawn in various ways with new challenges and new concerns coming in. So that we refer to as also a displacement of ideology. So with these twin dimensions, which of course is an analytical separation, but they are intertwined in multiple ways uh, that we will see. So before I get into to this crisis, how uh, if we want to do something about this crisis, I would like to take you back to certain kinds of thinkers and philosophers. Ambedkar, of course, being one prominent thinker who was talking about the vulnerable things. Gandhi, definitely his talisman is quite well known. Like whenever the Gandhi's social philosophy about his talisman came a couple of years about before his death, and what he pointed out in that philosophy is very substantive. He pointed out that whenever we are in doubt, and particularly relevant for those who are in the public policy domain and governance, whenever we are in doubt, so let us imagine about the most vulnerable person that one can think about in our mind, and what our intervention or policy design will have impact on that person. So that would create that would melt away our doubts if we have any. And I think this is a very powerful social philosophy, because the other substantive philosophies which talk about equity, that is talked about in political circles or political philosophy circles, is like Rawls, Sen to also joins into that debate. So in when Rawls comes in, he brings in something called, okay, if we want our political domain to be just and to be addressing concerns of the vulnerable, then he brings in something called the veil, the where we don't know who we are, and that he refers to as the original position. Because if we don't know who we are, then we may given that we could be either rich or poor or have not, so we may decide policies keeping the have nots in mind, because there is equally likely that we could be in that space. Now Gandhi, if you go back to Gandhi, he says that no, you don't have to actually be in a veil. You just go back to yourself and ask yourself the question without being in a veil, whether what you are doing is uh, the right thing for the most vulnerable person or not. And Ambedkar's thought, of course, we all know, he has been largely in his constitutional uh, exercises, he and others also, those who are part of it, how they have tried to bring in the concern for the marginalized, the vulnerable in multiple ways. So now, given this vulnerable concerns that India has had since its inception or since the building of its constitution, uh, why have we left out? Why have we left the marginalized out? So in this diagram that you will see, the red Warsaw dimension that I'm trying to tell. So let us try to look at our interventions or policies in the rural space in from three perspectives, because I'm talking about today we are talking about a millet based system. So let me talk about something called the neglected and orphaned crops, because with the green revolution, with the paddy wheat focus, and other crops focus in a very similar way. So the focus, has been a neglect to millets particularly, and the neglect has been substantive if we divide millets between major and minor millets, or the small millets area and production has been substantially declining. The other neglect that we will be talking about or with focus is marginal lands, rain-fed areas. So because if you go back again to the green revolution, it's about irrigated areas, so and better off lands, not the marginal lands that we have been focusing there. Similarly, vulnerable populations, whether they're small farmers, women, Adivasis, Dalits, because some of the interventions that we talk about with input intensive interventions that we can talk about, so there will be some amount of scale that is required. Like if you buy a particular equipment, let's say a tractor or something, then you need that means other your land area and other things need to be of a particular quantity or amount for it to address those scale advantages that those equipment may provide in. So given this things, what we are saying that a policy thinks to be sensitive to this vulnerability, whether they are crops, whether they are areas, or whether they are populations. The sensitivity should be in this that green triangle that we are trying to see, that we can say ZED space that one can talk about. So that means whatever the vulnerabilities are, our focus should be in proportion to some shortfalls. That is this ZD line, that is the proportion to shortfall, but it can have a larger space. I can come back and elaborate this if there are questions. But in real life, what happens is conventionally when we talk about that, okay, we fix the rents to the landless or the tenant, and then whatever interventions or investment is on land, and everyone it is the landowner takes everything. So that will be something like a worse of status quo, because you fix rents and then you take everything, the rest of the, and there are investments. If you fix rents and then the output is the same year in and year out, then that's a different thing. But if there are interventions, investments, and increase in returns, all go to people, those who have rights over that is not the tenant, or because of the fixed rent. On the other hand, if you move to a now, even within the fixed rent, I'll give the counter example of that. Within fixed rent, it could be such that the investments, the fixed rent is so fixed, not rent, fixed tenancy, fixed amount given to a tenant, a fixed share, whereas fixed rent is given to the landowner. So that corrections, please note. Now, on the other hand, instead of the tenant getting a fixed amount, if they get a share, so then this will be something like ZB. Like even if there is an increase in output, that will be equally shared between them with whatever share. It's 50-50, 70-25, or whatever shares there will be. That share will remain status quo. But there were certain interventions that happened subsequently in very rare cases of policy, where they would say that some people have been left out. The good examples can be, okay, people have been left out from education, so we will set up a school in the village, and each and every individual children, those who have of school going age, they should have access to the school. So hereafter, the access to the school of those children will be equal. So prior to that, maybe the school education was defined in such a way, only people those who could afford to certain schools, they could go. Otherwise, many others could not go to those schools. Similarly, healthcare facilities provided at people at your village or at the primary health center or something like that, or through publicly provided care. So at least a certain basic care that will be provided to everybody would fall in this kind of equal distribution. But in many other policy spheres, it could be like market and various other forces can come in. So where we may be pushed below C, or we may be somewhere around B and A. So real world scenarios could be like that. So though we want policy space to be somewhere between Z, E, D, but because there are multiple domains, multiple things being pulled and pushed, so real world may be somewhere between C, B, or B, A, or something like that. That's so coming back to our rain-fed agriculture issues. So when we are talking about those three vulnerabilities that I pointed out, crops, lands, marginal lands, and peoples. So here we would try to say that the focus should be an inclusive about those who have been left out. how we can bring them back, how that intervention can be sustainable, and yet we can talk about food security. So I'm showing a contrast between this two input intensive transfer of technology that Green Revolution gave us, which is on the left hand side of the screen, facing the screen that is facing you. On the right hand side that we are talking about knowledge centric is the alternative that we are talking about. Input and output are interdependent, and it is there's a complex system that is diverse, location specific. We have mixed and multiple produce. So production and risk reductions are there through use of marginal lands, and commons are important. So space for community participation is there. And if you look at this, the way that this has been visualized is that we have kept it like a weighing or a scale, and the right side one which is lower is one which is heavier, which is better. So we feel that this knowledge centering intervention is an alternative way of getting an agroecological through an agroecological lens, and that's how one should be looking at things. So the general counter to this is that there is no alternative or TINA, as you see there. That's why whatever is there, we will go ahead. But we believe that it is actually like my or Mother Earth. So multiple alternatives exist, but these multiple alternatives are not like something unique that is applicable to everybody and or every situation. They are diverse, complex, and location specific. So once we understand and work with that logic, so which would mean that there is a lot of effort and time which is knowledge centric or knowledge intensive that needs to be given, but it is feasible and one can do with that. And this is basically a reiteration of what I have told. I'm trying to explain to you. Suppose there are different scenarios, and let us talk about pre-green revolution and green revolution scenario, how risk and returns can be addressed. So in the pre-green revolution scenario, let us say that for analytical purposes, let's say that we have 4 years and we have some costs for our inputs, so which is 1 unit, and then that gives us a return of output in terms of 3 units. So whatever our net returns is 3 minus 1, which is 2. And let us say that we whatever returns we have, we will consume. So we consume about 65% of it. So 1.3 is consumed from this 2. So we are left with 0.7 units, which we save. So like every individual or household does, we save 0.7 units from 2. And we have this scenario for 3 consecutive years. So our saving gets cumulatively accumulated to 2.1 units. But let's say in the 4th year, we have a very bad agricultural output. It could be flood, it could be droughts, or it could be some other things that affected our crops. And as a result, our net returns becomes negative because my input costs are not being, I am not able to get back my input costs. So it's -1. So what I will do when I will use my savings. So from this 2.1 units of savings at the end of 3 years, I will make good this 1 unit. I'm left with 1.1 units, which I will use for my consumption, which is lower than what I was doing in the previous years. So if I consume everything, then I will have a consumption, little less consumption. And the end of this 4-year cycle, I will be with 0 units, and then the whole cycle starts again. So this is an analytical setup. But suppose now this input intensive green revolution has come in, which is actually bringing in more inputs, whether they're seeds, whether they're fertilizers, whether they're pesticides or water. So all these things are coming in, and my input requirement increases from 1 to 3. But look what has happened. My output has actually doubled from 3 to 6, which is a very good thing. And my net returns has also from 2 to 3, it has increased. It has increased by 50%. So if I have more income or more returns, I'll consume little more. So let's say that instead of 65, the propensity to consume may decrease from 65% earlier, it may go down to 60% now. And so I will consume 1.8 units. And then what will happen is I will be left with a savings of 1.2 units. At the end of 3 years, let's call that 3.6, which is also much higher than 2.1 that I had here. But if I have a bad year in the 4th year, like I had in the pre-green revolution scenario, so what will happen is that to make good my input cost of the 4th year, I will have to borrow my savings. So this -3 units has to be adjusted with this cumulative savings. I am left with only 0.6 units. So you can see that the how the vulnerability of risk in the fourth year in a input intensive scenario is much higher than in a pre-green revolution scenario. So are there knowledge intensive alternatives? We have, of course, the AP, the undivided Andhra Pradesh or AP current, including Telangana also has some of these initiatives. So these are knowledge in intensive sustainable solutions that come up. There are small pockets, farmers and other civil society groups have done this across the country. So what we would say that if this knowledge interventions leads to also increase in input costs, so let us say my input cost become 2, but it may not be as costly as the input intensive scenario, and my output also increases from decreases, let us say, from 6 but increases from 3 from the old scenario. So here some people there are literature which questions by saying that no, my if done properly my output will not reduce. There are other literature which says that output may reduce, so because we may not be able to do all those package of practices, plus vulnerabilities are there. We may be in that fourth year scenario, we never know where when we are doing an intervention where we are. So even if let us say that outputs don't reduce, if I'm taking a reduced output, so if there are some logic that comes out from this reduced output, if output would not reduce, that would get further strengthened. So having said that, let us say because 5 minus 2 remains 3, I will say that my net returns, my consumption will be similar to the input intensive scenario. Here again, people may argue that if I to go for sustainable practices in my cultivation, my lifestyle will also have a sustainable approach. So my consumption may not be as high as 60% or 1.8 units. It could be lower, but assuming that it is similar, let us see what is coming out. Again, in the end of 3 years, I have a 3.6 units of savings left. And if I have a bad year, sorry, this 5 should look as 0 here, because my output the fourth year here, this should be 0. So this correction, please note. And I am left with minus 2 units because my input costs are not made. So I'll borrow these 2 units from here, and I'm left with a consumption or that could be possible, which is relatively much higher. So this is the alternative, the 2-3 scenarios that I have tried to build before you. The inclusive philosophy, the integrated, sustainable, knowledge-intensive approach, and through an example or a fictional example I showed, or an analytical example I showed, how that could be better. Of course, ground realities may differ from situation to situation, and we should look into the question on that situation. Now, given this initiative, let me get back to some experiences like around 2015. As Dr. Ruchira was referring to, when I was there in Bhubaneswar, Odisha, we had this consultation meeting with civil society and government that happened in January 2016 at NCDS, and based on that, we devised a proposal, and the proposal was submitted to the government, and within a month, like by March 2016, the government of Odisha in its budget announced that we will have a special program on millets. So it took another 1 year to get the nitty-gritties done and actual budget apportion. But so this is the very brief background of that. Now, if you look at that consultation meeting and the designing of the program in Odisha, so there was this, I refer to it as the KPP interaction. So where the knowledge or academia or policy government, which I refer to the policy space as the government, and practice spaces, civil society and farmers. So these 3 entities came together from day 1 or day 0. From it, we came together at the consultation meeting level, where we had no idea that such a program will be launched, and then subsequently at the designing stage, at the implementation stage, and at each and every stage at various levels, you can say, whether we go down to the block level or the farmers level where this is happening, or the state level where policy discussions are taken. So at various levels, we have these 3 different entities. So in some other form working, like when you go down to the farmer level, we may have the Krishi Vigyan Kendras of the OUAT scientists who are there, who may be facilitating help. There could be other scientists who need not be associated with either the government or NCDS, who could be helping. And we had civil society as facilitating agencies and others, and also program secretariat who were there in the field. Plus, of course, we had line departments at the lowest level, coming down from the village extension worker till the CMO's office, one can say. So what I would say is that this the KPP interaction is something which happened from day zero and which happened at multiple levels. And the way these three entities worked was like complementing and supplementing each other. Like if all of us are trying to work for the people, for the vulnerable peoples, for marginalized crops in this case, and or neglected orphan crops and marginal lands, or basically if you have a people centric approach, we may have our constraints, academia may have its constraints, government may have its constraints, and civil society may have its constraints. How can we go ahead and work together? So if there are questions and concerns, I may elaborate on this, but I'm not saying that there were no challenges in this. Maybe I will briefly point out some of the challenges, maybe from one or two examples I will give. Like initially, when we thought there are three entities need to come through, so you're saying, okay, government is there, academia is there, civil society is there. But from my point of view, I can say academia is not a single body. An economist like me, trained an economist, may think very differently from social scientists. But leave aside social scientists with whom we may interact at some level. So we agriculture scientists or science and technology people, and all those people, the way they think will be very different from the way an economist would look at it. And within economics, we may have a different ideological way of looking at things. So uh, sorry, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you. Sorry. So this is, we can complement and supplement each other, was one of the things. So by looking at one's limitations, how we can take things forwards. So there was a call or a need that there should be convergence within each and between. Like for example, I'll give one example of convergence that could happen within the government. The agriculture department may have differences of opinion or different way of looking at it, of how budget should be apportioned vis-a-vis the finance department or some other department. So there needs to be convergence within things. And even within agriculture, there could be also a debate or discussion of how much should be given to millets vis-a-vis other crops. So this convergence is one thing which I'm just illustrating it as an example, but this is a question which happens within government, within civil society. So within civil society, it can happen that someone is talking about tribal rights, someone else is talking about forest rights, and someone else is talking about marginalized or vulnerable, neglected, orphaned crops. So how we need to bring in those thinking, and even if they are within the same within, if there could be different entities, different NGOs, or within the NGO there could be different people with some having a focus on one or the other. So then there was this call for real-time policy engagement. And the problem as an academia is that we need to publish, and otherwise we will perish. So the data that we collect has to go through rigorous peer reviewing, and some of the disciplines that we are in, social science and economics, the publications could have 2-3 year lags. Now this will have no meaning for the government or for the civil society, because they're working with the farmers. Now how is it that we can help them? So there are two things I will just briefly tell. One is that we could perhaps come up with policy briefs which could be immediate. But another thing which was much more relevant is that we engaged and shared with some of the people that matter through more informal mediums. That means I cannot claim that, okay, I have, if someone says that give me documentary proof that you have done this, I will not be able to give that. So, but I'll give you one example. In the first meeting, when we were trying to roll this out, all the district agriculture officers of the 7 southern districts had come. This meeting was held in Koraput, and the development commissioner and the agriculture secretary, I think they were also there. But at the end of the meeting, when these people they were there either virtually or physically, I don't remember, but in the evening both these people were not there. So one officer comes and tells me, what all that you are saying is very fine and good, but this will not get rolled out. This program will fail at the initial stage. And I asked him, why are you saying this? So he said, no, see, there is this thing called, you have said that the facilitating agency to be selected, this has to be approved by the Atma board, which sits at the district level. So, but then Atma board sits every quarter, and they have number of things in their agenda. So this being a new thinking and new design and all, so it's quite likely that it may get deferred in most of these meetings. It will be a last point in the agenda. It may get deferred. You may be lucky if you get it in 1 or 2 places, but otherwise in most of the places it will get deferred. So then I told him that why didn't you tell this kind of a thing when the development commissioner or the agriculture secretary was there? He said, no, all these people have worked in the district and they are very knowledgeable. And who am I to share my views in front of them? I don't have. I thought I'll share it with you. So then when I go back and tell the development commissioner and principal secretary or other higher officials in the government, they all agreed, yeah, this is a very genuine thing. We should change this and maybe make the PD project director Atma, who will be approving this, to be ratified later by the board. And this change, of course, it took some time for this change to happen, but it did happen, and that led to that this initial concerns. Like, there are many such concerns that we informal discussions, engagements with various stakeholders, and then conveying the message from one to the other. So was helpful. In a sense, one can say that sometimes academia role, of course, publications and those leading to policy decisions at a very higher level is one kind of intervention. But interacting with officials at the ground and conveying some messages, working as a catalyst, can also be helpful. There are multiple ways that this real-time policy engagement can happen. And then, of course, these alliances, forging of alliances with various other academic entities. Like we had this Tigris, which was a major collaborative program that happened with University of Cambridge leading, and currently also there is another 3IE grant research project going on. We have had other researchers, OUAT, and in fact IIMR is also a partner. We have Dr. Sangappa coming and speaking that he will. So IIMR, CFTRI, various other research institutes and entities have been. We have been collaborating and forging alliances, but this alliances is not necessarily only academic in nature. It was also with various other civil societies or government entities, lessons going and back and forth from various things that happen. So I will let me know how much more time can I take. If I'm going slow, let me know so that I can cover. I have.
Sir, we have till 5:30, so you can take a little more time. There is no.
Okay. Yeah, I know there are two other speakers. So yeah. So see that there is when one problem that one states, there are three paradoxes, I think, which have already been pointed out by Dr. Ramesh. But I will take one of those examples. Like the farmer points out that the farmer, when you go and interact with the farmer, when you're starting this program and you're interacting with the farmer, or we are taking lessons from others, those who have done similar work or taken lessons, the farmer gets a very low price. Like the average ragi price was about, or median price was of 10 to 15 rupees, in some cases even lower than 10 rupees. So the farmer thinks that there is the demand curve, that the hashed lines, the blue line, hashed blue line is the demand curve. Farmers think is the actual demand curve, but the farmer think the actual demand curve is lower than that, the darker unhashed line that we have here. And consumer, the actual consumption supply curve is here, but the consumer feels that the supply, that means the produce provided by the farmer, is much lower. So what would happen is that from the consumer point of view, if I feel that the supply from the farmer side is low, which is this darker red line, so that means I'll end up paying PC, which is more than PA. I'll pay higher price thinking that the quantity is lower. So, but for the farmer's point of view, what they will think that because of this darker line, blue line, they will think that, okay, the demand is lower, so I have produced more. Actual production is more than that is required, the farmer thinks. So they will end up selling at a lower price PF. So there is a welfare loss, if someone wants to look at it from that point of view, welfare loss for the farmer, for the producer, and then there's a welfare loss for the consumer. Consumer pays higher price and farmer gets a lower price. But in this whole process, so this paradox of farmer getting less and the consumer getting more is one of the concerns that motivated us to look into this. So what we realize is that to address these concerns, we should not be interacting in a single vertical. It should be the interaction should be from multiple verticals, and like what we have mentioned here: production, processing, marketing, and consumptions. So this was one of the things to break this paradox. Of course, there have been other paradoxes that we see. We call these foods as a poor man's foods, or giffen good in economics, or equivalent to that. So, and you will have a lot of folklore in each of these local languages, whether it is Oriya or something, which will be identifying either the crop name or those who eat these crops as if they are they are worse off, or they are poor, or they are something doing wrong. But now we know that millets are nutritious. In fact, they are antidote to a lot of chronic health diseases, and so this identification of them with being a poor man's food is something a paradox in itself. So so these are certain things, and now these paradoxes actually haven't happened because people think like that, because the perception has been built through various ways, and it leads we need to again correct those perceptions and bring them back wherever possible. And because there are various other forces at work would benefit if people have a perception that the supply or demand, either through this or other perceptions, are actually different than they actually are, so that some other people may benefit about those price differentials. So having said that, I will briefly talk about now in the baseline. I'll talk about what happened in Orissa. Initially, when we were talking about this program, we thought that there will be such program in about 30 blocks for 5 years, and then one would show how things are moving ahead. So, but what happened compared to the baseline of 2016-17? So, in the first year itself, what one observed is the area increased in among those farmer households substantially. Not substantially, one can say that by 50%. There may be some corrections to this at a later point of time, but at least in the first year there was an increase in average area among these households. The production increased substantially, and this is one of the this production is even if we correct for the increase in area, it still was more than double in terms of yield. So in 16-17, the yield based on farmers' responses was less than 6 quintals per hectare, but in 17-18, the first year of the baseline, it was more than double that, so 12.7 quintals, less than 13 quintals. So so production per household also had increased, and we can say that if one takes value per household or value per hectare, the value of the produce, they have either doubled or tripled over the period of time. Even if you let's say value per household or value per hectare, if one looks at it, value per hectare has more than double, 9,000, nearly 9,000, less than 9,500 rupees has increased to more than 2,000. And these are real terms. By real terms, I mean that what in the baseline, we also collected information about what is the price that the farmer was selling a particular millet crop in that village or the block or something like that. So we took that as a price reference, and then we imposed that price to the production that we had in 17-18. So these are real prices. So the doubling of this thing that we are showing about thing happened in real terms. Now recently, Diktimai Jaina has actually defended her PhD thesis. So this thesis is also an outcome of academia, civil society and government coming together. So one aspect was research. So there is a PhD thesis that has come out. There are 3-4 others, not only from Orissa but from other places which are in the pipeline, and they will come out. And there could be many more, perhaps in different places that I don't know. So this thesis basically talks about two things. So replicates or extends this exercise of the first year that you see in the chart to the second and third year, and with controls. And one sees that this doubling of produce or value of produce doubling does hold good even in the second and third year. And in the second and third year, actually the area increased substantially. Not only 30 blocks, it went to 55 and then 70 odd blocks, and which I'll show in a moment. And then a field work during the 2 pandemic peaks was done to find out perception of farmers. Again, that's from this thesis that was recently defended in Utkal University. So there, from the farmers' perception that there has been an increased yield, vis-a-vis suppose there has been no increase, no change, or there has been a decrease if one compares. So an ordered logic econometric exercise shows that the odds ratio have been positive and significant for application of, because of SMI, system of millet intensification, or seed treatment, and or weeding frequencies, whether there are no weeding or once, twice or thrice. So the number of weeding, the higher the weeding, that has shown a odds ratio was again shown to be positive, and or they receive training on agronomic practices. So the even when there was a control with some other factors, like say year of intro, the year the farmer joined the program, say their caste or their literacy status, or various other factors were put as controls. None of them turned out to be significant. Only these factors that turned out to be significant. So what I'm trying to tell is that, so this basically shows that at least some of the evidences in the first year. And I would like to repeat this story. Actually, this first year story is very important. When we started, as I told you earlier, in 2016, we had this consultation exercise. And then I was asked that to submit a proposal. Again, with the help of some of our civil society partners and others, we submitted a proposal which went into the budget. And it took 1 year for the budget to give us funds. But actually, finally, funds we were able to get in June, middle of June 2017. Now, middle of June, if any of you are familiar with Odisha's agriculture scenario, which is similar to the rest of the country, by mid-June, our agriculture planning is over. So we were also not very sure, or we were a little skeptical of what we could do that year. But then some of the partners that were chosen through a rigorous selection procedure, the facilitating agencies, and because of their commitment of all the people, those who were associated, somehow by the end of the year, we now know that the yields were doubled, produce was doubled. So this exercise, which I'm saying it was doubled, researchers, we take so much of care, we clean the data, we do so many checks and balances. This report came out in in 2020. That was 3 years, or nearly 2.5 years after the intervention happened. So now this is not going to have helped the intervention. But what farmers do is that they see what has happened with this person who has done this agronomic practices, and the farmer himself may go to hire more lands, and the others by seeing that happened. So when we started this program, there was this empathetic official who pointed out how some similar kind of attempts in the past led to failure. Like when they were telling farmers, why don't you take up millet? I'll tell this in Odia. So some of the farmers pointed out, Torpo kai khaibo bhata ruti, morpo kai mandia khaibo. Mandia is the name of ragi in Odia, and bhata and ruti is referring to rice and wheat, chapati. So it's like, why is your son going to eat rice and wheat, and why is my son going to eat millets? So, and contrast to that, at the end of the year, we got lot of calls, including to my office then at Bhubaneswar and to me. So many people called up, why is it this program that you started, why was it limited to those 30 blocks or those villages? Why it did not come? Why my village was not included? So again, one sentence I would say about one respondent, one person who called, sir, ame kon sarkar ko chheundo pila haigalu ke, are we orphan children of the state? So why that program went there, why it did not come here? So initially in our plans and designs, what we thought we will showcase in 30 blocks for 5 years, and if some success or output comes out of it, then it is for the government to take it forward. But see what happened. So you see that from 30 blocks in the first year, that it increased to 55 blocks, increased to 72, 76 by the third year, and by the end of the fifth year, it has gone to 84, and the sixth year, it has gone to 143, and seventh year, the current year that we are in, the government of Odisha has taken it to all the 30 districts and 177 blocks. Not all the blocks of the state, not all the villages or all the GPs, but this is the way that it has expanded in blocks, in number of districts, farmers from 8,000 odd farmers to more than 2 lakh farmers in this 6-7 years. In terms of area, I showed you 5,000 hectares there, and this here I am showing 3,000 hectares. So this is because this 3,334 hectares is different from what we showed in the baseline thing. Is this 3,334 area refers to where the government provided incentive. Now there are a number of farmers who came into the program, but because they perhaps might not have followed certain agronomic practices, or because of some other logistic or technical issues that happened, they were not recorded as farmers who were part of the program. So they were somehow, some exclusion was there. That was largely in terms of, that's why this area is little less. But then even if you take the 5,000 hectares or 3,000 hectares, there has been substantial increase in area from that to about 80,000 hectares. Crops, initial first year, there was only ragi and 2 other millet crops. And subsequently, the program has expanded to and looking into 7 crops. Procurement started in the second year. See, this has also grown uh, from 18,000 quintals in the first year to more than 6 lakh uh, tons. The current figures are little more than 6 lakh tons, but I don't have those figures, so I'm just leaving it there. So this is how the program spread. And one contrast that I would like to make is that first ever procurement of any grain in the Simanchal Malkangiri happened in 2000 December 2019. Now here for that thing, because there was a bridge, the Setupriya bridge, which was built in Malkangiri area, which is marooned or coroned up by 3 sides of water. So on the other side of the bridge, a stall or a procurement center was opened, and on that day people came in headloads, in mules, in carrying it on boats. So contrast this, around the same time we had farmers gathering in Delhi. They came in tractors, some were there in cars, and some came in bus loads. So I'm not saying those farmers had a concern, they came there, but contrast the kind of farmers that we are referring to. This was a place where there has never been a procurement center. These are farmers who didn't know what is procurement. They were just passing by. Someone said that, okay, Mandya, government is buying, and these people, we facilitated the purchase when the first day, even though they had not registered into the system. These people. So what I'm saying is that various aspects in the program are there, which is true to the spirit that we started with. Of course, that spirit was internal. We didn't share it with people then. The philosophy that I was referring to, how the most vulnerable or marginalized people can be helped. But I think many people who were with us from the beginning, somewhere they said that, okay, it should be people-centric, pro-people. We help those who require, and that is how many of these initiatives turned out to be. There are various other aspects within the program, whether providing millet laddus in schools, in Anganwadis, coming up with different recipes for ICDS, or participatory varietal trials. Odisha perhaps is among one of the first states where number of ragi varieties have been released through the government through a varietal trial which started with indigenous local land races. And scientists were also involved, not only local farmers and women farmers and local farmers were not only involved, but also scientific principles were followed in the selection of these varietal of these land races. There has been a lot of interventions of how to reduce drudgery. One of them is mixer dehuller, like particularly small millets and minor millets can have processing difficulties. So there was this like a mixer, how we can process, and we can which will be helpful for the household consumption of some of this. So there was a small study also which we are doing, and but results are not out of how the take up of this dehullers, because we try to facilitate a local entrepreneur and see if the local entrepreneurs entry into business can be sustainable. There are a lot of questions that come in there, so we are still working on that. But yeah, what I'm saying is that science, technology, enterprises, marketing, there is various kinds of knowledge that we require. It's not only one knowledge system that is relevant, and there are successes and failures in each of this, and we try to borrow from there and take things forward. And women SHGs have been very integral part to this exercise, and they are involved in the procurement. They are involved in a lot of stalls that have set up kiosks, millet cafes, and serving of millets laddus in Anganwadis. So women SHGs have been involved in various, and FPOs, of course, where they deal with both input and output, not necessarily with millets, but also with other crops. So the fact. Another point which I have been saying about this, Odisha learned from many places, and Odisha's success has also gone to various parts of the country and beyond, including, I can say, the successes in Odisha and other parts of India also led to the government of India petitioning or asking that there should be something called the International Year of Millets, and we are celebrating it this year. So we had knowledge sharing with some of our partners beyond India, within India. So there are various aspects that has been happening, and to, in a sense, to not to sum up, or the penultimate summing up, if I want to say. So if I have to look at the triangle below, to reiterate, we are talking about a KPP interaction, but we are talking about 4 verticals from production to consumption, but then this production to consumption may have sub units, like it may have storage requirement, primary processing, procurement, and storage after procurement, then further transportation to lead to the to further transportation from where it has stored to where they can be further value addition or to the consumption consumer. So what I'm saying is that various things available. So on the one hand, maybe goods can go, money can come. So there are a lot of back and forth happening. That there are two-way transactions, but this production is itself in a larger agroecological sense, one can say. So this makes it good for the planet, good for the farmers, because returns we saw was higher. They are also good for the consumer for nutritional benefits and various other benefits. And this, in a sense, also links with various SDG goals that we are talking about. So one sense, uh, extending that thinking further, I would say that some of the recommendation recently, I think in February 2023, in celebration of International Year of Millets, we had a People's Convention on Millets for Millions. So some of the discussions that emerged from there was about breaking barriers in millet productivity, and millet productivity should be viewed through a sustainable intensification, uh, through a multi-cropping system which point to locally adopted traditional varieties. So, and that do better in mixed and integrated production system. And I must say that this debate or this discussion of the People's Convention that happened there had scientists present, had farmers present, had civil society, had government functionaries from different states, and of course the union government present there. So this was a discussion of 2 odd days that led to emergence of these ideas. The second point that I would stress, what comes out from there is strengthening agrobiodiversity of millets. So like this participatory varietal trial is one, but the community managed seed systems is somewhere linked to that. And as I mentioned, this can be done through a combination of indigenous knowledge with scientific principles. And this should be taken up at each and every level of the value chain. While we are doing it, processing ecosystem, it should be people centric. Like I was talking about the the mixer dehuller kind of a thing. So how we can have big machines which cater to big urban centers, but when you're talking about villages, hamlets, and people there, because they should also consume, and their nutrition is also important. So how we should be addressing that? Not saying that either or, because but we are saying that how these are not mutually exclusive things. These are both can be done, and how they should be done. And enabling support systems for strengthening local millet markets. And we should not be putting millets with rice or wheat in the consumption. We should have a balanced diet. And the best thing that reminds me of this is that we have this folklore or thing from Gadaba communities. So with them, like paddy is like the son of the house, whereas mandia ragi is the daughter. And it's not like that we have to put the son against the daughter. They both have their relevance in the household, in the community, and there is a give and take between them. So we are not going to pit that, okay, millets are going to take away rice, or rice is going to good or bad. We are not getting into that debate. We are saying some of the advantages are there, and rice or wheat may have its advantages. But then anything which is advantageous should also have a balance, should have a limit. We cannot do anything in excess. So perhaps somewhere we have gone to that excess, we may address some of those concerns. So another thing is that bringing millets to diets, supplementary nutrition program, Telangana and other governments are doing. And to sum up, finally, reiterating my summing up, we should be inclusive, as that inclusive Ambedkar Gandhian Rawls figure that I showed, to make to address concerns of neglected or orphaned crops, of marginal or rain-fed areas, and vulnerable peoples through an agroecology lens. And the focus should be from farm to plate, like the 4 verticals that we are talking about. But in a value chain, there could be much more subunits to that, and each aspects need to be focused. And each subunit between any 2 aspects, when we are focusing, there is a bidirectional relationship. With goods go from one to the other place, money comes back. But this bidirectional relationship or transaction is beyond money. It could be about soil nutrition, it could be about various other things which has a symbiotic relationship, which could be a triad. And one of the triad that we are talking about, knowledge, policy, and practice. But there could be multiple triads, or there could be higher order relationships between various factors, and we need to identify and respect those. Uh, and there is potential. The potential not only because this is International Year of Millets, and some of the things that we are talking about are in sync with SDG, and we should actually take forward all these things not only for this year, maybe for the next decade and maybe beyond. So with this, I think I'll stop, and I'll open for any comments, queries. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, Professor Mishra. What a detailed and wonderful presentation. Let me just quickly change the host controls. What I'll do is that I'll allow you to unmute and ask questions. I request you to please raise your hand before asking the questions. And at this moment, we will take maybe 3 to 4 questions. And then again, after our other speakers have finished, at the end, we can have a combined question and answer session. So you are all unmuted now. You can raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask the question, please. Yeah, Dhanira Mahirwarji. Dhaniramji, you can unmute yourself. I think Sri S. Kiran has also raised his hand, so you can unmute and ask, please.
Yeah. Since there are no many questions from others, I just want to ask only one question.
Yes, please.
Srijit, you mentioned there are 7 crops were included in this Millets Millet mission. So you mean all the 7 millet crops were included, or any other crops along with millets?
No. Here I am referring to millet crops. There are other, if there was an intercropping and all, there could be other crops, but I'm not referring to them in this. It's only millet crops, like brown top, kodo, rosso, jawari, bajra, ragi. So the major millets and some 3-4 minor millets, they would have all 7 of them are there. Of course, ragi is a major, has larger area. But if you look at shares of area, one can see that in the first year, what was as much area was there in ragi, that much area is now being covered for other millet crops in Odisha. So percent-wise, that will be very less.
Yes.
But other crops have been coming up, and including small millets.
Thank you.
Dr. Mishra, before I ask others to ask, just one curious that what was the structure of your sample, like the households that with which you have done the program, like how many of them were women farmers and male farmers?
No, I think structure of the program is we try to facilitate initially. This was a program which was largely focused in tribal areas. So most of them were tribals, and if there were women farmers, it was not basically designed that we should have 10 of them or 20 of them. The design was largely in terms of area coverage, and we initial years we did fall short of area coverages, so those areas were added to the next year. So if there was a woman farmer, by definition coming in, they were always welcome. But women were coming in more as this women SHGs were coming in different aspects of the program, like whether when you want to set up a kiosk, when you want to set up the procurement center. So there, that women SHG focus was much more. In fact, one thing which I can tell is that I think 2018-19 we had that Hockey World Cup coming in. There was this women SHG in Bhubaneswar who were trained for recipes and all. And I recall that first time our entire team was hand-holding them on how to cook, how to clean, how to serve, how to take payments. And 2023, when we had the second Hockey World Cup again happening in Bhubaneswar, so this team was totally independent. There was no hand-holding. Only 1 or 2 members were there to not only to prepare but also to manage the stalls. And there was a second stall also which was done by another woman. So I think women have played roles in multiple ways, but when it comes to production intervention, there was no specific thing that okay 10% or 20% or 30% have to be women, but they were vulnerable like civil castes, civil tribes and civil castes. But other farmers were not denied entry into these things, but because it was largely an area focus into the program.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, any farmer who has land can come in, and because these were tribal areas, most people were tribal farmers, so they were coming.
Right.
So like now we have 30 districts, they have expanded to other areas.
Yeah.
So it could be farmers from any community coming in there.
Moving on to the raised hands, I think Dhaniramji, if you can unmute, please unmute and ask, or we can move on to Mr. Adesh.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
सर मैं ये कह रहा था कि इसमें सीएसआर में जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटी है कोई रूरल एरिया में जो ये प्रोग्राम होने वाला है.
हाँ बिल्कुल सीएसआर में भी आप कर सकते हैं, लाइक सीएसआर में भी आप कर सकते हैं इसमें को लाइक see Odisha Millets Mission not directly CSR, like initially the first year program came through a budget state plan budget it came in, but as the successes came in there was this case of Kyaunchar and Sundargarh, okay, Sundargarh and perhaps subsequently Angul also. So the budget of some of the experiments or some of the interventions that were done, like for example providing laddus, millet laddus into Anganwadis or schools. So this was extended to the entire district of Kyaunchar, and the funds came from the district mineral fund through their thing. So CSR and in various places CSR funds can be used for various purposes. So I don't know in Odisha how much it can happen, but in some other place you want to take up a village or you want to take up a block, CSR funds definitely can be used for these kind of or part of these exercises, if not whole of it.
Yeah, I hope your question is answered, Mr. Irvarji. Can we ask Mr. Adesh to unmute and ask the question, please? Adesh Kumaram.
गुड इवनिंग ऑल. एक्चुअली मेरा ये क्वेश्चन था कि जैसे हम SRLM के थ्रू ये मिलेट्स का जो कार्यक्रम है वो इम्प्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं. इन केस ऑफ मैं BRLPS में भी साथ काम कर रहा है जो यंग प्रोफेशनल, तो मुझे लगता है कि जैसे कुछ पैचेज में ये इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हमें देखने को मिल रही है, उतना फास्ट ट्रैक नहीं हो पा रहा है. तो जैसे ITC, इफ आई एम एबल टू टेक द नेम ऑफ कंपनी, तो चौपाल है या फिर अदर जो कंपनीज हैं जो CSR एक्टिविटीज़ में इन्वॉल्व हैं, तो उनके थ्रू क्या हम अवेयरनेस कैंपेन करवा के या फिर इसको और बड़े इंटेंशंस के साथ इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं, या फिर क्या टाइम लग सकता है इसके इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में और रिजल्ट्स आने में सभी SRLM के थ्रू?
जी या नहीं, कैंपेन अवेयरनेस इज हेल्पफुल, बट जैसे मैं बोला ना पहले कि ये इफ यू वांट, आपको स्केल अप अगर करना चाहिए और सर्टेन गैप्स और पैराडॉक्सेस जो है उसको अगर एड्रेस करना चाहिए, तो मल्टीपल वर्टिकल्स में काम करना चाहिए, प्रोडक्शन में, प्रोसेसिंग में, मार्केटिंग में, कंजम्पशन में, एंड हर एक चीज़ में बहुत उसके अंदर जाना पड़ता है. लेकिन व्हाट आर द इंस्टीट्यूशंस, वुमेन एसएचजीज कहाँ ये करोगे, तो आपका अगर जहाँ भी है उसका स्थिति क्या है, एंड देन we need involvement from different stakeholders, not only companies and CSR, those who are happening, but like for example in the Odisha Millets Mission, I think today's success in Odisha Millets Mission is because of ownership at multiple levels, whether it is academia, those who are involved, whether it is civil society, those who are involved, but within government, big shout out should be given to the government, that from the village extension workers to the CMO's office, so there was a buy-in, there was an ownership at multiple levels. And I think though if you want to scale and fast track, and that requires engagement, like some of us have to engage to make them convinced that this is there, and people get convinced not because I say or you say, they'll get convinced when we show them some results in the field. So it's hard work, engaging and discussing with them, and suppose there are successes, 2-3 successes, we should have enough evidence and data to say हमने 100 जगह किया, 10 जगह में कुछ खराब हो गया फॉर ये रीजन, बट बाकी देखो 90 जगह में ये सब सही हुआ है. तो ये this engagement requires documentation, data, and engage with science and research in some sense should be होना चाहिए. Science and research not for their publications, but science and how documentation can help you make a point. Many times civil society, CSR also, so your documentation may be just for your CSR requirement, but if you want to scale up, your documentation should be success, where saying that see हमने यहाँ success दिखाया, CSR से 100 रुपया लाया था, लेकिन ये सब करने के लिए हमको 500 रुपया चाहिए. CSR is committing to give another 100 rupees for the second year, for the third year, but बाकी 400 रुपया कहाँ से लाएंगे? Maybe सरकार, maybe someone else, maybe another CSR, another company wants to come together. So a lot of convergence is required. It's not necessary that the government has to fund. Maybe 2-3 CSRs can come through, or various other entities can come through and do it, take it forward. But it requires bringing together people at various levels, and these are local challenges. Only if I sit through you and discuss with you at a one-to-one basis, one can think about what was the challenge, how to address it. But it is a daily issue, and I can say there are 1,000 problems that can happen. You need to address them at that level.
Actually, just I wanted to discuss one more thing, that actually we are working on around 10 lakh of active SHGs. Women are very adaptive and they are able to do things in a different way as they are get involved in the things and get the knowledge of the things. So just I wanted to that figure that it can be mobilized and be a great result and outcome by mobilizing them.
Yeah, obviously you can. There's no two opinions. We can mobilize them. They need to be given their due credit. I agree with you. They are women are good adapters, mobilizers, and can do a lot of things. In fact, women and farmers are two of our biggest innovators whom we have not respected. Like all innovations in the kitchen has happened since millennia by mothers, and in farmlands by farmers. So they look at the uncertainties and risks and try to address that. So yes, we need to accept that
Thank you so
reality
much,
and take
sir.
advantage of that.
Yeah. Can we have the next person? He has not joined by name, but by his organization. It's called Village Renewal Organization. This will be the last question, and then we can move on to the next speaker, please.
Hello, namaste, sir.
Yeah.
This is Dr. Narsimha Reddy, representing Village Renewal Organization, working in Andhra Pradesh. We work with the Chenchu tribal community, which is identified in Nalamala forest area, both in Prakasham and Nandyal districts of Andhra Pradesh, sir. These tribals are very vulnerable. They have the biggest resource in their hand is the land. It is given under the Recognition of Forest Rights Act. But their main lacuna is that they don't have any financial capacities to bring in that land into cultivation and take up the cultivation also. So in this situation, the millet could be the best low cost and very cost effective crop that could be encouraged among the Nalamala Chenchu tribal communities. So we are there for the last 10 years and helping them to with our whatever available resources to bring in that land into cultivable situation through different means. And till now about 200 acres of land is brought into cultivation, and about 200 farmers, they are now becoming from as a full-time farmers. So having this background of the 200 acres and about 150 or 200 farmers, is there any opportunity to collaborate with and to encourage the millet farming among this Chenchu tribal community by convergence with the CSR and research institute like you?
So you said Andhra Pradesh?
Yes, sir. Andhra Pradesh.
So I think APCNF is there. Andhra Pradesh is doing substantial work in an alternative way, and through that also the whatever community managed natural farming, whatever they are doing, they are wherever it is feasible, they can do also on millets and other things. Now the thing is that we are saying it is forest land, so some amount of convergence between them and the forest thing is required, and I think that should be feasible, and you can take it up with them, and I don't think that should be a problem.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm sorry I'll have to stop the question answer here because our other speakers are also waiting. But on behalf of NIRDPR and CSR PPPPA Center, I really thank Professor Mishra for his time. I know that there are a lot of connectivity issues and issues with monsoon being there, and still he was able to finish his lecture. And we will, of course, I have shared some of the readings in the chat box already. I'll also collect the other papers and the reports that he has mentioned in his presentation and share with our participants for reading. And we hope to have Professor Mishra in our future programs as well for a more detailed, possibly physical discussion on these issues. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Ramesh, if you have.
Yeah, I think I would like to say thanks to Professor Srijit for accepting our request. It has been a wonderful session, sir, and we look forward to your support whenever we further progress on this aspects. And it has been very enlightening for us, and I hope the participants will carry these messages and include in their work. Thanks a lot, sir, for
Thank you,
joining.
sir. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you, sir.
Ruchira.
Thank you. So I would now like to request Shri S. Kiran to present, just to see. Uh, Dr. Kiran, am I audible to you? I think I have given the host controls.
But given, I think maybe he's lost connectivity. I'll check.
No, I'm online. I'm just trying to share my presentation.
Right, right. Let me just see. Yeah, your host controls are there, so you should be able to present. Now, while Dr. Kiran is presenting his PPT, let me quickly introduce him to all of you. Sri Kiran Sakari is the Executive Director at Vikasa, based in Vishkhapattnam, Andhra Pradesh. This organization promotes FPOs and works widely with the startups on in the areas of other kind of crops, not your rice and wheat and staples, but with millets and coffee and these types of crops. Uh, Thank you so much, Dr. Kiran, for your time, and we really look forward to hearing from you about the initiatives that you have taken.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchira. Thank you, NARD, for this opportunity. And I also thank Srijit. I mean, I'm meeting him, albeit virtually, almost a decade ago. I still see the passion that he has for the millets, and which has really translated into action Orissa Millets Mission. Are you able to see my look at my see my presentation screen?
Not yet. It's not shared. It's lagged actually. Um, there may be some connectivity issue. If you share the PPT with us, we can also share it from our end.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
It's lagging. Just yeah. Now we can see it.
Fine. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ruchira and Dr. Ramesh, for giving this opportunity. It's especially in the CSR NIRD lecture series. So the topic is very apt, especially in the era of international era of millets. So reimagining agriculture and in the rural areas and scaling of millet-based farming systems. When you say farming systems is part of it's not just millet crop alone. So that's quite, I mean, that the name itself includes the system. It's a whole lot of a system. I think I'm not able to run through. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, it's visible. It's visible.
Yeah, basically, when you look at agriculture, Indian agriculture, you can say it is predominantly irrigated as well as, I mean, two types, irrigated as well as rain-fed agriculture. So when all of you know, when we got our independence, we were in a situation we were producing only 50 million tons of food production and with 40 crores of people. So we were in a rush to produce more. So I mean, so we people, the policymakers, they looked at the drivers to augment the agriculture production. So if you list out the drivers, like these are the key points that I could list out. I can see, these are the predominant points that I can say. So first and foremost is expansion of the irrigation, especially through canal irrigation and also in most of the areas, groundwater irrigation also. And the second most important driver is the replacement of the traditional seeds, low performing, low yielding seeds with the high yielding varieties, developing high yielding varieties and hybrids and all. And third important factor is the application inputs to produce more, like fertilizers. So these inputs were provided through subsidies, but most of these subsidies are back-ended subsidies, not the farmer has to pay full amount, and the companies which produce this fertilizer, they get the subsidized amount. So these are all back-ended subsidies. Then the other important drivers are the pesticides. When you promote one or two crops, monocrops and all, then there is a tendency that there is a flare-up of the pests and diseases. And in order to save your crop and save your produce from loss, so you need to go for some plant protection measures. And pesticides were seen as saviors, and they were it was so it has become one of the drivers in the agriculture growth. Then to some extent mechanization, like mostly that tractors, power tillers, and small agriculture tools and all. So mechanization also played some especially in the resource rich areas like in Punjab and West Bengal, and also in West Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh. These are the areas where initially the green revolution was initially started. So these are the areas which could the mechanization also was fast. It picked up very fast. Then once the production is complete, naturally there has to be some procurement system, support prices, minimum support prices, and then once it is procured, it has to be distributed all over India. Where the production is deficient. This was another driver for the agriculture growth. Then the last but not the least is the institutional credit to the farmers. So though there are many issues like farmers are not properly getting the or in time they are getting the credit support system, but to some extent it has also played a role. So we can also say it is also one of the drivers of the growth so far. So now if you go back to the same slide again, the pictures. So the entire in India, irrigated area is mostly around between 30 to 35%, and rain-fed area is 60 to 65%. So this is the contrast. So whatever the growth that we have seen so far has come mostly from the irrigated and resource-rich areas where water is available. All other input subsidies and support systems are also placed around the irrigated agriculture. At the same time, there has been some neglect. I can say it's a gross neglect on the rainfed system. Whatever the schemes that are floated for this agriculture in the irrigated area, they're also as it is implemented in the rainfed area. So, but that requires a different, outlook and approach altogether, as Srijit has just mentioned. So, the systems are completely different. Crops are different. The seasons are different. And duration of the rainfall is different. This all these aspects have to be considered while implementing any scheme. But by and large, same schemes were also implemented in the rain-fed areas. So if you look at what was the total fertilizer subsidy, and that was, if you in the recent years, there has been a news that the fertilizer subsidy has surpassed 1 lakh crores every year. So what are the crops which are mostly gaining the advantage of this subsidy? And how many schemes are implemented, as I just mentioned, were also applicable to rain-fed areas? These are some of the important issues while we want to reimagine agriculture in the rain-fed rural areas. So because we are at a cusp now, whatever potential that is available in the irrigated area, we have achieved, and we are there is a large area, vast area, almost 60 to 65% of the rain-fed area, where the potential is not optimally utilized. So all the advantages that comes, we started with 50 million, 40 million tons and 50 million tons in 50s. And now we have reached this year, the estimate says it is around 330 million tons of the grain food grain production. So there has been almost a 6 times jump in the overall food grain production. But at the same time, it also comes, it has also brought some of the important issues which we cannot neglect anymore. So, if you broadly classify them into economic, ecological, social crises, so technology fatigue. So whatever the technology that was invented and introduced some 20, 30 years ago, the incremental benefit with the technology is not, we are not able to get from the same from the new technologies in the irrigated areas. So the incremental application of the fertilizer is not resulting in the incremental benefit. So the fertilizer use efficiency in these irrigated areas is also slowly eroding. So it's declining. Then the growth with higher input subsidies. So low growth and high input subsidies. And then we are on one side, we are increasing the subsidies year after year, but the incremental growth what we are getting, that is not commensurate with the input subsidies that are going. And when it comes to ecological issues, the soil degradation because of so monocropping, over exploitation of the crops and expanding the dark groundwater areas because over exploitation of the groundwater resources, leading to other multiple crises. And also there is an impending climate risk. So when I say climate risk, also we also need to know we are seeing a shift in the seasons. Earlier, we used to get rains in a particular fashion, but now I think everybody has seen that there is gradual shift from the even the Kharif and Rabi seasons. So these aspects also have to be. This is not as the result, completely as a result of the technologies and all that, but we need to wake up to the situation. That's what I'm trying to say here. And the coming to social issues like acute farmers' distress, poverty, hunger, malnutrition. And fodder availability is a big issue for the cattle. So these are all the other social aspects. Like on one side, we are producing almost 330 million tons of the food grains, but on the other side, there is a gross poverty, hunger and malnutrition. So production is happening, but at the same time, we are not producing the quality foods. So these are some multiple crises that we are seeing. So now the big question is, are we going to continue to over-rely on the same drivers of the growth, that too from the same resource-rich areas, or we will turn our eyes and also look at the resource-poor areas or rainfall areas where the potential is not optimally utilized so far. So if the answer is yes, then we need to think about these are what needs to be focused while reimagining agriculture in these areas. So these are some of the important aspects that needs to be focused, especially while reimagining agriculture in the rural, especially rain-fed rural areas. So first and foremost one is improving enhancing the soil productivity. So the soils, most of the soils they are parched. So we need to improve the nutritional status of the soil. It needs to require a different kind of approach. Then I'm not going into the details of the issues, but I'm just touching upon important issues. So which can give some ideas and instigate some thinking among the listeners of this today's discussion. Then providing the critical irrigation. So when you say irrigation, people think that many of the people outside agriculture, they say the crop has to be in the inundated situation all through the season, like rice. It's not so. Even for rice, there are some for any crop, not only for rice, for any crop, there are some critical stages of the irrigation, critical life stages of the irrigation. So if you irrigate only during these stages, you are assured of 20% better yield compared to the rain-fed situations. So if there is a possibility, if you can provide critical irrigation to the crop in the rain-fed areas, there is immediate chance of getting the higher incremental benefit from the rain-fed areas. Then support diverse cropping systems. When I say crops in the rain-fed areas, it's not the single crop, solo crop, like entire extent of land is cultivated in the rice, and the extent of land is cultivated in the wheat and cotton, other chilies and like that. It's a mix of crop mix. Different system, different agriculture system have different cropping systems. So to what extent the existing schemes are supporting this diverse cropping systems, that we need to look at it. Then extensive livestock, instead of promoting intensive livestock systems, can we have to, it's not can we have to promote extensive livestock system, so which provides the livelihood support to the people living in the rain-fed areas. Then other important area which we are not focusing is in inland fisheries. So which is a untapped potential in the rainforest ecosystems. So there are so many season-based ponds and all, where there is a very good opportunity for providing them fishes, season-based fishes. So which will definitely address the issue of nutritional aspects as well as income to the farmers. So then building the institutions to help the farmers. Like a single farmer, a farmer alone cannot take most of the issues. So we can group them like what currently is going on happening, like farmer producer companies and organizations. So these are some of the important aspects that needs to be focused while reimagining our agriculture in the rainford areas. So in this context, as the topic is about millets, so I'm only limiting, I'm not touching upon all other aspects, but only I'm limiting the millet crops. So these are the different millet crops. I think Dr. Sangappa will give much more insights into the all the crops and all. So I'm not going into details of all these crops, but broadly you can say there are 6 small millet crops and 2 major millet crops: Bajra and Ragi. Bajra, sorghum and Ragi, these are the open grains. The rest of the millets are hulled. They come with the covers, though they have to be hulled before consumption. So if you look at the current status of millets in India, so India ranks, even today, India ranks first among the millet producing countries. As in the introductory meet, Dr. Ramesh also mentioned that 40% of the millets we are producing, 40% of the global production of the millets, India is producing. So in spite of that, the production at the national level is witnessing deep, steep decline in the last 6 decades because of some policies are neglect. So if you take crop by crop, so sorghum has lost almost 54% of the acreage, and Bajra has lost 18% of the acreage. Finger millet lost around 47% of the acreage, while the minor millets lost almost whopping 75%. So earlier they were part of the cropping systems in most of the rainford system, but now we have to, look with you have to search for those crops where the crops are being cultivated. So that is the situation in the current situation in India. So when we are talking about the millets, why we are talking about the millets? Why this particular year international? Why we are talking about celebrating International Year of Millets? And why you are talking about millets? Why we are promoting millets on a large scale? So these are some of the important issues, the important aspects that help the that's the reason why millets have to be promoted on a large scale, and because this is the time we need to relook at our agriculture and policies to promote millets. So these are the crops of antiquity. Most of the millet crops either originated within our Asian countries, so they are well suited to agro-climatic situations. So most of these crops are very well suitable to dry lands and important. They are important ingredients, important parts in the most of the tribal farming systems. So they provide nutritional food security in the disadvantaged in the rainford regions. So all these millet crops are short duration crops. They require less water. They are cultivated even in scanty rain conditions. If you look at there are two types of photosynthesis. One is C3 type and C4 type. C4 type is a more efficient way of photosynthesis. That all these millet crops there belong to most of millets belong to C4 type of crop. So the photosynthetic ability of these crops is much higher. So it's not they are not photosensitive. Less photosensitive. So even in the low light times also, they can produce their own food, and they get short duration is another advantage. Then they are highly resilient to in different ecological situations. So they are crops of ideal crops for the climate change. Nowadays, the buzzword is climate change. So because the climate change, there's some all issues that are happening, and the rainfall is. If you look at rainfall, it's happening. Almost the intensity of rainfall is very heavy in few days, but the spatial spread of the rainfall annually agriculture year is reducing. So these are the issues that we need to change. We need to adapt crops, adapt to those crops which are resilient to these climatic situations. Then they have the nutritional issues, and then also address the nutritional security, the disadvantaged groups like women and children. So we are talking about 330 millions of food grain production in India, but almost 35 to 40% of the children are still malnourished and undernourished. So that's the reason why we need to promote. We have to encourage wherever there is a possibility. We need to encourage these millet crops. So if you look at the nutritional advantage of this crop, so they are rich in proteins, they are rich in fiber, they are rich in calcium, rich in iron and zinc. So the proteins are building blocks. So they are very much required for the women, especially lactating women as well as children in their growth stage. Fiber is required, the lifestyle disease that we are facing now. So people are advised to go for the high fiber foods like millets. And calcium, if you take calcium, if you take ragi, finger millet crop, it has 300 milligrams of calcium in every gram, in 100 grams of the food. So it's almost double than the milk. We say, when we say calcium, people always say milk is rich in calcium. But in fact, milk has double the quantity of the calcium than the ragi has double the quantity of the calcium than the milk. Then iron, how many Indian women are anemic nowadays. So these are the crops which can address this issue very effectively. And the zinc, which is required for the healthy development of the fetus, is also all the millets are rich in the zinc compared to other crops that we normally consume. So these are the advantages of the crops. So when you see, we are seeing that the advantage, we are seeing these are the crops of rainfed systems, and they fit very well into the tribal farming systems and different agroecological situations. So then how to scale up the millets in the farming systems? So for this, we need to take these are three approaches. One is production related issues, and then processing as well. Then the third one is the consumption. These are the three important aspects that we need to consider. If you look at the map on the left hand side, almost 40% of the area in India is rain-fed. So we know that there is an opportunity. So if we need to earmark the millet production clusters, then we need to go for a targeted approach. We have to take a targeted approach, like what we have witnessed in the Vikasa millet mission shared by Dr. Srijit Mishra. So they have identified the clusters in all the tribal areas, in all the districts, and they're promoting millets. They're locally adaptable millets that are adaptable to the local situations. So that is the reason why they're able to see the almost 2 or 3 times jump in the production productivity of the millet crops. Then quality of the seed, quality seed in the right time. So this is always an issue in the agriculture sector. So generally the budgets are approved in the month of April. By the time budgets are released to the agriculture department, it is May, June or July. So by the time the cropping season is lost. So why not we take a different approach? I think it's not that since government is following this particular cycle, we also need to simply do that. At least we have to put up some semblance of resistance from the Department of Agriculture and the scientific community. They need to put up some semblance of resistance. So this is not the way we need to. If you want to address this issue, we need to take a different approach. So we cannot wait. The season will not wait for your budgetary releases. So we need to match our releases according to the season. So that's the stand we need to take up. We have to raise up and question this issue. Then the nutri crops, millets. Millets always they're part of the farming system. They're not the sole crops. So that's the reason why I asked Srijit also, whether the 7 crops includes any pulses. So there are many pulses, minor pulses, like if you take in our area, like where we are working in Araku area, there are many minor pulses, rice beans, and Rajma is a rice beans, other dolica species. There are at least 3 or 4 pulses which are found along with the millets, which are cultivated in some of the low interior areas. So why not we include both millets as well as pulses and call them, we can put them as a nutri crops and promote them as a farming system. So they, they in fact, they gel very well. So it's not that they are new crops, they are crops of location specific crops, and they can be promoted in a large way so that farmers production also happens both the millets and pulses. We are importing a lot of pulses every year, so that, and we have a lot of protein malnutrition. So all these issues can be efficiently addressed if you promote millets as well as pulses, if they go hand in hand. Then providing critical irrigation, as I said earlier, critical irrigation is repairing the check dam. There are so many check dams were constructed earlier, but they were completely neglected. So if you can at least repair the check dams and provide some look at the gravity systems. So can we take advantage of gravity to provide irrigation to a cluster of the fields? So these are the location-specific issues that can be looked at from the location. Depending on the location, we need to take the approach and work on them. Then coming to the processing issues, if you look at rice processing machinery setup and millet processing machinery, in case of rice milling efficiencies are 69%. So that is the reason why rice we are able to give rice at a lower price. Whereas when it comes to millets, the processing efficiency in minor millets is very poor. It is between somewhere between 55 to 60%. If you can improve this efficiency by 5 to 6%, so definitely the cost will come down. Minor millets are grown in the production. The reason why minor millets are higher for the consumers is the production and productivity of the minor millets is very low, and almost 50% of the minor millets, 50% of the millets, the weight we lose in the process of processing. So that is the reason why the prices are very high. So a lot has to be done on this processing front. So in fact, whatever the machinery that we are still using, they are rudimentary machines, I can say. So it has to be taken up on a forward-footing basis, and government has to invest a lot of time and investment resources, like either human resource or financial resources, to improve the processing efficiency as well as the energy efficiency of the millets, so other units. So that a number of people in the rural decentralized, we can go for the decentralized units. So a number of entrepreneurs also will come up and take up these processing hubs. So in case of millets, it's not like a paddy. So you can take the paddy from all the different states and keep it in a centralized place and process it in a central place and store. But when it comes to millets, it's completely contrast. Once you hull the millets, once you remove the outer coat, the shelf life of the millets is drastically reduced. So it cannot be stored on a large scale after processing. So that's the reason why we need to have the decentralized processing units at a reasonable cost at different locations. Then only that we can address the issue of the processing, shelf life of the issues, and also the nutritional aspects of the disadvantaged groups like children and women. Then coming to the consumption area, this has to be we need to take a differentiated approach for different players. See, there are predominantly there are two different players. One is self-help groups and small medium enterprises, which are mostly focusing on ready to eat and ready to cook foods. So they have to be they have to be schemed that address all these particular targeted group. And other targeted group is the large scale units, like which produce specialty foods, dietary foods like sports foods and diabetic foods, which cater to the urban areas and export markets. So they have to be taken in a different footing. So these two are completely different these two are completely different segments at which needs a different approach. So when it comes to consumption, we need to take up this. We need to take a differentiated approach to promote the millets on a wider scale. The first two aspects, like self-help groups and small and medium enterprise, they address they augment the millet consumption at the local level, also address the nutritional aspect, health and nutritional aspects of the people consuming the millets. And the third sector is for the large-scale growers, large-scale business sources, and which also in turn help the growers, because when there is a lot of demand international in the international markets and urban markets, naturally people also, growers also will get the benefit. So finally, I would like to say an ecosystem is required for millet to promote the millets in the millet farming to promote the millet farming systems. So this ecosystem primarily requires 5 aspects. One is the starting with the seed, better crop management and processing hubs, and aggregation of the market and building the soil. So these are the 5 aspects which they have to go hand in hand. Even if anything is missing, we lose the ecosystem is not complete, and again we come back to the square one. So government has to take an integrated approach, keeping in view all the 5 aspects. Then only an ecosystem is built around the millets, so that we can improve the scale of the millets based farming systems in all the tribal areas or rainfed areas. And in this slide, I just wanted to say, recently the Meteorological Department has released this data. So almost 78% of the total districts across India were facing grid situation in the month of May. But are we really equipped to face such eventualities with seed, with the irrigation potential, and what are the requirements to promote millets? Are we really equipped? So if we want to, we wanted to promote millets over 1,000 acres in Araku. When we wanted to go for a better variety, there's no seed at all. So on one side we are talking about the celebrating International Year of Millets and conducting meeting every here and there, but there is no seed at all. See, that preparation has to come from the agriculture sector, the scientific sector. So I think grossly, I'm not saying they're the only people they are responsible, but they have to put up a semblance of resistance. And for most of instead of promoting only the 1 or 2 crops, they need to put up a strong face, and they need to plan very well ahead. Otherwise, there's no point in discussing and celebrating all these international years and all. So I would like to close this my talk with a positive note. So despite that there is a gross neglect over the last 6 decades, still India is the global 35 to 40% of the global production is from India. So that is the kind of resilience that these nutri-cereals have. So nowadays millets are being treated as a nutri-cereals. So let's take advantage of all these advantage of these crops and take forward these millets in a large scale wherever there is a possibility with the policy support. So then only we can go forward in we can promote the millet-based farming systems in the rainfed areas. I thank you for all your patient listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kiran. That was very insightful, and you also laid a very basic issue in the millet policy of India and some of the challenges we still need to talk about. Let me, before opening it for question and answer, let me already invite our next speaker, and let's have a joint question and answer at the end, because the time is very short now, and we also want to hear from Dr. Sangappa, and we are going to take questions against your talk at the end of the program. Dr. Sangappa, am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Just a minute.
Yeah. So without much delay, let us hear from you. And since the current discussion ended with the shortcomings of India's science in terms of adopting a millet policy, let us hear from our young scientist, Dr. Sangappa, who has joined us from IIMR. He will be presenting his work and his insights on this issue. So a quick introduction to Dr. Sangappa. He is an agricultural extension at IIMR since 2015, and he works currently on formation and handholding of millets farmer producer organizations to create them as startups. He is also into entrepreneurship development among millet producers through consultancy, training, DBT societal project. He is doing capacity building of national and international millet stakeholders in processing and value addition. He is creating demand for millets in non-millet growing areas through innovative millet extension research and training farm gate, and he is developing linkages among millets producers and consumers. A very expansive area of work in this area, and let us hear from Dr. Sangappa. Thank you very much for your time, and mic is over to you.
Yeah. Ma'am, hope it is visible clearly.
Yes, yes, it is visible. Thank you.
Yeah, the topic given to me was the millet promotion through the FPOs, and I can link with our IIMR experiences also, as it is the Global Center of Excellence on Millets, and it's dedicated by the Honorable Prime Minister. And we are working on all the 9 millets, and in addition to that one, there are several crops also. So previous speakers have mentioned detailed about their experiences on with respect to the Odisha Millet Mission, and from the Kiran sir also we heard. So now let's move to the complete to the promotional activities, how we can create the demand of the millets and also the increase the consumption of the millets parallelly. So though we speak that millet is buzzword, and millet become the rich man diet and poor man crop, but however we would like to see millet as a uh, poor man diet itself, because in India we have the more BPL families, and that should the consumption, demand and production should go parallelly, and then only we can achieve the sustainable income generation to the dryland farmers. So with this background, so just to go before going to the in detail about our FPO experiences and all, I would like to highlight that there are 9 types of the millets where we grow majorly in India. 3 are the major millets like the jowar, bajra, ragi, and another 6 like including the brown top millet are the minor millets like little millet, kodo, pearl millet, foxtail, and barnard millet, rosa millet. So buckwheat and amaranthus and some more minor crops also, which are cultivated in northeastern states and in some isolation place of the India, were also considered as a millets, as they are nutritionally good and provide the micronutrients to the consumers. As we are celebrating International Year of Millets, it's our responsibility to talk about the millets and create more awareness about the millets for the production as well as the consumption among the consumers. So we have seen many international year, even past also, regarding the quinoa, regarding the International Year of Pulses, health card, and now we are into the millets. So what is our responsibility? It's regarding the quinoa. Of course, in 2013 we celebrated, and maximum hype created around this single commodity, not only in India, even in the other countries as well. And in 2015, Year of Soil, of course, we achieved the awareness about the soil health and created large number of soil health cards as well. 2016, we celebrated the pulses, and as we heard that from the previous speaker, that we still import the pulses from the other countries. However, we achieved with the area expansion during this year, and the awareness has created also. And now 2023 is the again International Year of Millets, and proposed by the Indian government, and FAO declared this as a year. And this dryland crop requires special attention to meet the demand, and also to address the various lifestyle diseases. As I mentioned, this has the dense of micronutrients. So our responsibility is to create awareness on the production, consumption, and market linkages also to the dryland farmers who produce the millets, and to link them to the market is our responsibility as a consumers or as a stakeholders. So what we have the challenges, as even previous speaker also mentioned, regarding the sorghums, regarding the minor millets and all. Minor millets is require a dehulling, that is called the processing. So that is mainly the issue being faced by a large number of the farmers. to mill that one and to make that one as a rice and to market also. And with regarding the production aspect, of course, it is a monocropping related issues and inconsistent supply of demand, seed related issues. The quality seed is another matter. And in millets, after the processing, shelf life is the major problem. And if we establish the even processing units at farm gate, again the skilled manpower is the major constraint. So these are all the some of the issues being faced at the ground level. And however, the machinery manufacturers, especially this dehuller with good efficiency, is also a kind of the problem or the constraint nowadays. And due to these issues and all, the even consumption of the millets also decreased during past year, and also the demand also decreased. However, due to the health aspect and more concern about the health issues, nutrition aspect and all, the demand for the millets and value-added products of prepared from the millet is increased, and people are looking at millet, and even not only the millet, even organic and naturally farmed products as well. So our onus is to increase the area under the millets and also to sensitize the farmers as well as consumers to take forward this issue. Yes, the regarding the area production and productivity, even the first speaker sir also mentioned about this one. The area is decreasing and it has all decreased also. However, the productivity and the production remain same bit due to adoption of the high yielding cultivars in case of the sorghum, bajra, and the minor millets. So, but still, to make the international year of millet as a successful, we require the good varieties, cultivars, and also to the biofortified varieties in case of the small millets to enhance the area and also to provide better and remunerative price to the farmers and affordable price to the consumers to consume the millets. As I mentioned, demand is increasing for the millets with the various opportunities like the production related processing, value addition, seed production, and the different value-added product also the opportunities are there. And another side, due to our health issues and our non-communicable diseases and all, and some of the disorders, as well as the lifestyle diseases, the demand for such a crops or such a nutritional food is increasing. So that's why the more startups, more consumers, more entrepreneurs and FPOs are working on this aspect, and it became the buzzword. So, if you think that the farmer share in the consumer rupee, it's very low in case of the millet as well, because the milling of the grain due to the non-availability of this milling machine at farm gate is the major concern, and the local aggregator or the miller or the wholesaler take the maximum share in this farmer share in consumer rupee. So we addressed this issue by establishing and aggregating the farmers as well as the millet farmers especially to into FPO, and as well as establishing the farm gate processing unit. So these are the challenges. Of course, we have seen to the dryland farmers like the modern technology with respect to the millet, the advisory services, or the processing facility and value addition and all. So both the backward linkages and forward linkages are addressed through our FPOs, and backward linkages with the good quality seeds and other advisory services, and forward linkages with the processing, value addition, and other capacity building programs, including the storage facility to our FPOs. So this intervention helped the individual farmers to sell their produce to the local FPO, as FPO is acting as a procurement center in some of the areas, especially in the Karnataka and the Madhya Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, in Telangana. And by establishing the processing unit, that has helped the FPO farmers to get the better price for their produce, means comparatively. So this is the kind of supply chain we followed, starting from the seed, technical advisory services, inputs management, and the capacity building programs on the production aspect, processing aspect, and value addition aspect at the farm gate. And later on, regarding the market is the major important thing. So that has also been done through our FPOs and connecting them to the startups as well, because IIMR is having the incubation center here, and we have promoted startups also. So the millet FPOs who are into the production of the millets, and those who are not having the processing facilitated farm gate, that aggregated produce is being linked to the startup here. So that is the a kind of chain we have implemented, and that has helped many farmers as well and the startups also. Now you can see a number of the validated products in the market. So this is what I wanted to inform you regarding the FPOs, where we start with the input management, because the farmers come forward to cultivate the millets only when they get the better seed and as well as the reduction in the cost of production. So the cost of production will decrease only when we provide the quality inputs timely at the lesser price. So that initiated through the FPOs and also linked to the banks, established the custom hiring center for the processing as well as the farm machineries like tractors and all. Millet aggregation has happened at FPO level, and we helped them to have the warehouse storage and all with the help of the NAB Kisan and NABARD programs. And at the end, processing and validation capacity building programs, and coming out with the validated products and reaching out to the market through the ONDC and all. This was the complete model we have implemented, and that has helped the individual farmers to get the better price for their produce, and also the consumption was increased at a local level. So this you can see from the coming slides. So the different crops like the crop seed like kodo, foxtail, bajra, little finger millet, different seeds we have given to the FPOs for the cultivation based on the area of adoption. For example, we know that the Rajasthan is known for the cultivation of the pearl millet. So and the Odisha, of course, the starting from the finger millet to the now diversification is going on for the little millet, so jowar and even the pearl millet. So like that, we have selected some areas, niche areas. There we have given the seeds that has given confidence to the farmers for the cultivation. And later on, the commodity wise and the locally produced other commodities we have mixed, and also given the advisory services to the FPOs to cultivate the millets. For example, intercropping with the red gram in some of the areas like in Kalburgi district of the Karnataka and in Telangana, and providing the good quality pulse magic kind of the inputs to the pulse growers, and building the confidence of those farmers, and slowly introducing the millet in that area with limited area and all. So those things we have done, and even in the tribal areas also we have given this millet seed to increase the area. So the FPOs became the platform for us, so that we reached to those FPOs with our technologies and the improved cultivars, and that has given the better result also in some of the FPOs. So in order to have the better market and all, IMR has signed a MOU with the Flipkart, and they are buying the aggregated produce, not only the millets, even the other commodities as well, like the turmeric, pepper and all from the areas like Lambasinghe of the Andhra Pradesh. So similarly, IFCO Kisan is the another one agency where we are working with them for the procurement of the biofortified bajra. So that is been introduced in the Koppal district of the Karnataka, and that is a kind of a success also. The farmers received 2 rupees extra for per kg of this pearl millet in that particularly Karnataka. So the products were there, and we wanted to sell also. So we onboarded our all FPOs on the GEM, that is government e-market for the sale of the produce. So that has helped the government agencies to the introduce millets in their offices, and in other words, FPOs also onboarded with the better price, and so the linkage happened. And similarly, ONDC is the now my stores and DPIIT's initiative. ONDC is the another platform to sell the millet based products. So these two, and as well as the social media campaign, that is the Facebook and other Twitter campaigns also we have initiated to reach out to the maximum number of consumers on millet. So that's why the promotion of the millet has happened, and as well as the consumer received their product, and like the ready to eat products, ready to cook products are in some cases, and they have started consumption of the millets. So this is the related to our activity and FPO source. So how entrepreneurs are the CSR activities, this is regarding the social media, and we have also organized several times the millet buyers and seller meet for to link the farmers or the FPOs to the startups, and this has helped in many cases to aggregate the produce also. So the we have used this Google Meet platform, so connect to the startups and FPOs as well in many times. So they have received the good benefit. So you can see this is the benefit or the success of the one of the FPOs, where they have established completely the primary processing unit for the processing of the millets, and also packaging, branding, and reaching out to the consumers. This has acted as also as a training unit at the local level. So we have started working with the ICR KVKs also, where the promotion of the millet has happened. As we know that 731 ICR KVKs are located across the country, so we can still collaborate with those KVKs and promote the millets by introducing the new cultivars. So coming to some of the technologies, or you can see that the opportunities for the promotion of the millets from the side of the FPOs, from the side of the individual entrepreneurs, or the any CSR activities, even the NGOs can take up this validation initiatives, so that the farmers can get the confidence for their marketing of the produce. And in other words, the consumers will also get the locally produced millet validated products for the consumption. The non-availability is the one of the reason in India now regarding the millets to decrease the area also. So if you provide the value-added technologies, value-added products, or the ready-to-eat and ready-to-cook products timely, then definitely the consumers accept this one. Like the flour, semolina, khichdi rava, upma rava, idli rava, those are all the technologies developed at IIMR and introduced at the FPO level as well. And some bakery technologies like the cookies, millets, bread, khakras, and all can be developed, and these are all being sold by our FPO farmers. And coming to the flakes, this is the one of the good snack and breakfast item as well. So from all the 9 millets, we have developed the flakes, and this flakes is can be used again to prepare the several recipes also. So this is the one thing, and like similar to the corn pop or the corn, so we can produce the puffs also from the millets, so that act as a snacks item, and children and all, they accept this kind of the snacks items and crunchy items. So to increase the area and to promote the millets among the consumers and for a production among the farmers, so these kind of the initiatives need to be taken up at the farm gate at the local level. And extrusion like the vermicelli, noodles, and pasta, so those are all again liked by the children and all. This can also be utilized for the millets. And this health mix or the nutri mix kind of the things, a powder, nowadays it is becoming more familiar and also the popular, due to the health benefits, like the which contain the pulses, which contain the dry fruits, which contain the millet grains as well. So this is helping to reduce the body weight as well as the stress, and people are shifting from tea, coffee to the this health mix. And also this is also one of the opportunity to the SHG members and as well as to the FPOs to come out with a unique product. So these kind of the products or like the beverages will help local level to promote the millets, so that the farmers get the confidence that there is a market for the millets, and from the millets there are several products also can be prepared, and there are health benefits also. So that will boost the individual farmers' confidence. So next thing is that regarding the millets vacuum packaging. So if we pack the millets in vacuum packaging, the shelf life will increase, and so that you can target to the international market or the other states market as well. So coming to the thing related to the roti making, it's the drudgery for the woman, but this is a opportunity also to the woman to include the machinery part, and also to prepare the roti and sell it to the nearest restaurant and all for the SHGs and all. Even many NGOs have started this one, and this is being promoted through the mechanized way. So we helped the farmers to produce the seeds also to meet the demand from the different departments. So this has also promoted the millets area. And regarding the livestock industry or the sector, we have the better cultivars like single cut and multi cut forage varieties in the sorghum and the millets, and this helped to prepare the fodder block. And during the lean period, we have introduced in the livestock sector, and got the good response also in the increasing the milk and other yield in the livestock. So this is the complete diagrammatic development of the millet based foods and all. So this is helping one or other entrepreneurs to see the opportunities in the millet. Millet means it's a small grain, but however we have the lot of opportunities in this one. So completely the millet magic means the starting from the seed to the fork, we can work on the millets, and there are several opportunities also. FPOs and SHGs, NGOs, and other stakeholders can play a very important role in the promotion of the millets. And we need the education on the millets, how to produce it, how to process it, especially with the available machinery, and also how to consume it with the different types of the recipes, and how to reach the market based on the demand of the consumer. So these are some of the things. And at the finally we can see that we try to identify the market, because the dryland farmers, especially the small and marginal farmers, need the market accessibility. So that has been created, the collective approach of the FPOs, starting from the inputs to the till the marketing of the validated products prepared at the FPO level. We have worked, and that has helped the elimination of the middleman, and the farmers have got the better remunerative price, and consumers have received the better price, received the better millets products at the affordable price. So promotion millets, the different schemes are also mentioned here, and of course previous speakers are also mentioned regarding this one. And ICDS program is the one of the opportunity for the FPOs, as we heard about the OMM, and we also associated with the Odisha Millet Mission, where this is the success story, and this is a model for not only in the India, even in the at the global level, for the revival of the millets, or the promotion of the millets. So CSR and NGOs interventions also can be seen in the different states. Like the True Good is one of the incubative from the IIMR introduced the millet chekki now in the Andhra Pradesh as well as in the Uttar Pradesh. And HDF, we have signed a MOU with the HDFC Bank for promotion of the millets, and as well as with the ICICI Bank, ICICI Foundation for the promotion of the millets. So they are all helping our FPOs to establish such kind of the small initiatives like on processing of the millets and all. At one FPO that is located in Sirwar Taluka of the Raichur district received the sanction of the millet primary processing unit from the ICSA Foundation. So some NGOs can also tap such kind of the CSR funding agencies to introduce the millets and millet based machineries or other initiatives. So my final edging forward, or the conclusion is that we can aggregate the FPOs or the SHGs, so that our advisory services can reach to the maximum number of farmers through this FPO federation, through NGOs and entrepreneur scale, and we can link them to the market also, so that the consumers will get the better and nutritional food. Farmers will be happy. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope I have covered all the aspect, and in addition to the previous speakers, they have covered maximum things. So I have excluded those slides, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sangappa. Very interesting presentation. Let us have some questions from our audience, and this is a combined question and answer session for both Dr. Sangappa and for Dr. S. Kiran. So now I have again changed the controls, and you can unmute yourself. So can we have some questions for our speakers, please? Starting with Masoom NGO, I see your hand raised. You can unmute and ask.
हेलो हेलो
Yes, you're audible.
हेलो मैडम, ये जो है मिलेट्स अवेयरनेस के लिए जो CSR फंड है वो हमें अवेलेबल करना पड़ेगा या कोई प्रोवाइड करने वाले?
ये क्वेश्चन आप किसको पूछ रहे हैं तीनों स्पीकर्स में से?
नहीं,
No, I think that's
कॉमन क्वेश्चन
No, common question.
एफपीओ
सर मौसम एनजीओ से जस्ट मैं एक बात बताना चाहता हूँ। आपके लोकल एरिया में अगर से नाबार्ड है तो उनके पास भी फंड है मिलेट प्रमोशन के लिए फॉर दिस ईयर, द वन थिंग। एंड इफ यू हैव द ICICI Foundation, HDFC Foundation near to you, so they are also interested to promote the millets. And if you are from the southern India and if you know or aware about the Selco Foundation, so they are also funding some sort for the millet promotion as well as the awareness creation. So you can tap these things. In addition to this, many are there. I think sir can, Ramesh sir or the madam can throw some light on
Yeah,
this.
Dr. Sangappa,
ओके सर,
just a clarification. So,
वी आर आल्सो प्रोमोटिंग एनजीओ एपीओ भी हमने तैयार किया है 3-4 सीपीओ, उनको भी प्रोवाइड हो सकता है क्या?
yeah, no, Dr. Sangappa, I think all these foundations, they are all proactive or reactive proposals for CSR. I think you have to write the project proposal and then approach, I guess. I mean, just
Yeah,
because
exactly, ma'am. Exactly. In the form of the project itself, means
yes.
because of this international year of millets, they are also expecting some agencies to work on the millets for the
So
social.
someone can design a project and approach them.
Yes, exactly, ma'am. Yeah.
तो आप खुद से प्रोजेक्ट लिख सकते हैं और फिर प्रोजेक्ट के आइडिया लेके इनको अप्रोच कर सकते हैं.
I think Jaspal is raised hand.
Yeah, is there another hand raised?
Yeah, Jaspal.
Yeah, Jaspal Singh now. Please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much.
And all our three speakers are in the audience list, so you can ask questions to either of the three speakers if you have any questions.
My first concern is like, when we are speaking about the millet year, from last almost we can say last June, we have started the campaign on the millet year. It's been like, complete 1 year. We have done the whole campaign drive and everything. But there is an unfortunate fact that we have to accept. The first thing is, when we speak about the millets, there is only one millet that has been focused in a more, bigger manner, which is jowar, where we have seen a rise of, there's been the I mean to say the bajra. Sorry, not the jawar. I'm sorry. It's bajra. We have seen that the land which has been irrigated has gone up from 2.26 million lakh hectare to 9.81. Okay, so it's like a very huge development we have been seeing. But when we look at the other millets, there is no rise. There is no increment over there. It seems like more focus is only just on the one fact, on the bajra. So that is also a concern part we need to think about. This is the first thing. Second, my concern is when we speak about the interventions of the new, value addition products that is being developed. We have also seen that, last 1 year, many new startups have come up with the millet products. But unfortunately, due to the lack of proper, knowledge of creating the product in a right manner, they have failed to come up in the market and they have to go back. There has been a study on it, and we have seen a very, it was also said by one of the speakers, not over here, but the other millet meet I have heard that it has almost like, just 25% might be successful, turning into successful model, creating their successful model, but 75 are failing because they don't have the knowledge also. So when it comes to the knowledge partnering, this big gap is also need to be filled up. I think that is also a major concern. That is just I want to share it up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jaspal ji. Thanks for the comment.
Anyone?
Any rejoinder to that? Dr. Kiran, yes, please.
Yeah, I think I corroborate with Dr. Jaspal, Mr. Jaspal Singh. So when it comes to promotion, we say all millets are equal, but we need to agree that all fingers in a hand are not equal, are the same size. So at the same time, what we need to do is we need to focus on the location specific millets. So it's not promoting one millet, one set does not fit all. So we need to take up a millet, like a location-specific approach. The other aspect coming to the entrepreneurs. So most of the entrepreneurs are unfortunately, what they're doing is they're procuring large quantities of processed millets. I have seen this issue somewhere. So they unfortunately they don't know that once it is processed, the shelf life is greatly reduced, especially with the minor millets. So they have to take care in the in the storage. If they have to keep it in the air-tight containers or if in the freeze situation, if they can keep, but that shelf life can be improved. But they're not. They're keeping it in the open area. I mean, they're losing a lot. So this issue is. I have seen this issue with some of the budding entrepreneurs. So still there is some, promotion as well as the knowledge gap is there. It's like they need to, when they want to do something, an entrepreneur, they need to understand the nitty-gritties. Then they have to jump into the jump to swim. Thank you.
I think.
Thank you, sir. Any other question? Anyone else? I don't see a hand raised. But I think Mr. Jitendra Rai had some comment.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, we are working on the FPO in Jharkhand, Ranchi district and Hazaribagh. So some of the FPO are also involved in millet production, but they are facing this marketing and processing kind of things. So is there any support from Birsa Agriculture University or ICR also in Jharkhand, Ranchi? So if any resource person can provide any information, so we can contact with them.
So this question is to all the three resource persons. If there is any guidance you can give to Mr. Jitendra. He is working in Jharkhand and would like to know who he can approach to work on this.
Sir, I'm sharing my contact number. You can contact me for the establishment of millet processing unit like the cleaner, grader, destoner, and DLR at farm gate. But however, you have to raise the financial support from the other agencies, but we are there as a technical guidance. And regarding the market also, if you have the foxtail millet, little millet, and barnyard millet right away, then please do inform us. There are some buyers or the startups who are looking for these crops. आप हमको कांटेक्ट कर सकते हैं मैं नंबर शेयर कर
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Directly you can negotiate the price with them, and if it is okay, then you can go for the trading.
Okay, sir.
That is so wonderful to hear. Thank you, Dr. Sangappa. Thank you for resolving it right on the spot. Let us end the question answer session here because we are losing time and it's very late. Also, we were supposed to close it at 5:30. We are approaching 5:30. With that, let me thank all the three panelists, Professor Srijit Mishra, Dr. S. Kiran, and Dr. Sangappa, for your time and for taking the time and patiently explaining, engaging with our participants. I would like to quickly invite our center head, Dr. Ramesh Shaktivel, to make a closing comment, and then we'll close the program formally.
Thank you, Ruchira. I think I would like to thank Professor Srijit and Dr. Kiran and Dr. Sangappa. I think it has been a wonderful mix of academic work, field level, also like Dr. Kiran's assessment of the sector and where millet stands, and I think Professor Sujit gave the background and how it should be looking. We should be looking at it from the vulnerability aspect. I think what we read most of the time is millet farmers are losing out and they are not getting the prices and the market challenges which are there. I think from that aspect, the policy has to be holistic, not just promote without understanding, increasing the area or increasing the produce, but also it has to be looked at it from a very basic point of view of that how agriculture should be looked upon. I think he set the tone very well, and then that was very useful. And also the experience of millet in Orissa, what he has guided, I think that has been really an eye-opener for others to look at it, how it should be comprehensive, not just look at it from an angle. And Dr. Kiran's assessment, again, like it gave a concept of how millet is important, looking at the rain-fed agriculture as an opportunity. While looking at it as an opportunity, what are the systems that should be taken up carefully, and how it should be treaded when you are looking at this thing, and also the support systems by government, not just looking at it as a aspect to promote, but are also setting up the ground very well, and supporting the farmers in the right time, like release of seeds and other things which are a problem. And finally, Dr. Sangappa's, I think his presentation really touched upon what are the technological aspects and the improvements that are being done at IIMR, and how FPOs can be accessing this and supporting their work. I think from overall, I think it all fell in a coherent manner, and I hope the participants have got the insights, and they will be able to take upon millet as a important work in their areas of engagement wherever they are working. And IIMR support, I think nobody can, any issue you can write to IIMR, and Dr. Sangappa also can be useful. I think all your queries, whatever in the chat box, what I saw, is all like it can be resolved by IIMR. They have the bandwidth to address some of this. Funding, of course, is always a challenge, so it has to be managed at your level. CSR foundations approaching them, even government. I believe there can be a better convergence. With this, I thank you, thank everyone for attending this workshop and lecture, and also our speakers for agreeing and really making a big difference. And we thought, CSR, we are new to millet, but we thought we will organize this because being a millet here, and CSR and NGOs are working in the ground, so there can be a good push by this kind of an initiative, we thought. And I'm really happy that it went on well, and there are a lot of takeaways from this workshop for the participants. Thank you so much for all. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, and let me now formally close the session of the second lecture of CSR PPP and PA. Of course, I'll be sharing all the reading materials, the papers that our speakers have referred to. If any of our speakers want to share their PPT, that is also welcome. If you share with us, we will subsequently share it with our participants. And also some of the technical parts, I hope that we can have Dr. Srijit for further discussions and take up more focused discussions on this area, and kind of work towards a policy on millet in India with rural development, of course. So with that, I thank everyone for their time, and let us close the session, and we'll meet you in the next lecture series, which will be announced by us. There is, of course, a feedback system that we have under registration. Our team will be getting in touch with some of the participants after checking the attendance, etc. So still be in touch with our team through your emails, and we will see you in the next lecture. Thank you very much, and good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.